Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Dave, 1 million black men in the building. As people are coming in, thank you so much for being here, man. Tonight, some of you guys got my emails, my texts. We're going to have more emails and texts going out because tonight is a very important, very important night. Man, the Supreme Court came down with something that I think it deserves not only my attention, but I think anybody attention that would consider themselves indigenous people, particularly in America. Many black people, brown people, of what came down today. And what's interesting is that the deciding vote in the Supreme Court was a black man, Clarence Thomas. But we're going to go through this in a minute. If I have my team, can you put up our promo video, like the 2-minute video, the introduction about myself? Tonight, I need to make sure that I do a proper introduction. We have a great guest tonight. Let me say this too. We have a great, amazing guest tonight. Dr. McClinton is coming on from Morehouse University to talk about some of the nuances about this and what this means, particularly for academics, for those that are that have children and grandchildren looking at going to college in the next couple of years. What nuances this is going to present for them as people of color, as black people. But man, come on in the building. Everybody like, share as you get ready to come in the building. Good evening, Anthony, Don, everyone here. Look, tonight's going to be a very dynamic night. I promise you that. But if you guys can cue up the video real quick, the 2-minute intro. I don't like to brag, but I got to do an intro video on myself because tonight when I speak, I want to make sure everybody listening, I know we have a lot of different people who come through, who listen to us from all over the world, right? But as people start to come through, as the emails and texts go out, I want to make sure everybody understands the credibility and the space that I'm speaking from. What I'm going to say tonight, in some cases, I was telling some people, it could be seen as controversial, but it's going to be seen as truth. Because I think what the Supreme Court did today, and again, everyone entitled to their opinions of how they feel about different matters. But what happened today is, I think, how can I say this? Did not consider certain factors of what currently exists. And I think that the indigenous consideration was not considered. So with that, my team, if you could play the promo video real quick as we wait for everyone to come in. Hey, if you're here, please like, share, subscribe right now so we can get folks to come in the room. But we're sending out the emails and texts now. Please, let's play the promo. Is the promo video set up, everybody? All right, we're going to play the promo video right now and then come back, and we're going to talk about this whole thing. You guys don't see me upset often, but I am pissed, and I'm about to tell you why. Go ahead, let's play the video.
David Anderson has become synonymous with global black wealth. Whether he's shaping policies at the World Economic Forum, playing key roles within political circles on both sides, mastering the art of building unshakable wealth on an international scale, or breaking down barriers so that black men around the world can win. David is the world's best kept financial secret weapon. From the ghettos of Southside Chicago to the Obama White House, to the homes of billionaire moguls, David's receipts stretch well beyond million-dollar bank accounts, African royal families, or celebrity inner circles.
But I believe that they did something that all of us can do.
David's true gift is in single-handedly positioning everyday brothers to become global millionaires. Why? Because it's about damn time we own what's ours and have a real seat at the table. Money, power, respect.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, team, for that. Hey, if you're coming in the building, please say what's up. Good evening. If you're in the chat, please put in the chat, say what's up. As you come into the building, we got the numbers coming in. People are coming in. Look, tonight is going to be a little bit more. As you know, I talk about money. We used to get into economics. We get into wealth, how to build businesses, how to build enterprises, how to do all of that. But tonight, we are going to really get into this thing tonight. So if you're on YouTube, subscribe, like. If you're on Facebook, I need you to share this because tonight we are going to get into depth of what's going on. Why did this happen? what does all this mean, right? What are the nuances? How is this going to affect your kids and your grandkids, particularly for Black men who are here and the women who are here too? How is this going to affect you as a Black person? For those who are African American and not just African who immigrated, how is this going to affect you? How is it going to affect the African who immigrates here as well, right? So we're going to go into that tonight. So what I want to do first, before I introduce our guests, I'm going to start off with, we have an amazing guest, Dr. Justin McClinton, who's coming on. Let me give this intro first. I'm going to give this intro first, and I'm going to try to say this as eloquently as possible for everyone in here. Please, for those coming in, please say hello, comment so we can see you, right? Who's in the building? We don't know who's in the building, but share, like, subscribe. I'm going to try to break this down in the best way I can, and then bring on the professor, right, at one of the top Black schools in the country, Morehouse University, Morehouse College, college for Black men, by Black men, to give us insight from the academic side. So let me talk about it from what I consider a global policy perspective and a space. You had this group called the Students for Fair Admissions that was first founded, essentially sprung up by a white American individual, primarily channeled through Asian American students. And here was the premise of what existed. I've been watching them for a while. Here's the premise of what existed. At essentially, so I want you guys to know this idea of affirmative action in college admissions, right? This is not about, let me see what this is not about. This is not about not allowing Black, brown, Hispanic folks go to college. What this is not about them going to college at what you consider the middle of the ground schools. This is not about going to the local state school. This is not what this is about. This is about the top 20, top 30, I'll even say 40, okay, or 50 universities in the country. The Ivy Leagues, USC, Stanford, UNC Chapel Hill, Duke, Northwestern, U Chicago, Michigan, University of Texas, right? Emory. This is about WashU. This is about the top 30 to 50 schools, right? The fact that people and individuals felt, many who were not citizens, or they were not indigenous to this country, America, right? Who felt that, example, my parents pushed me hard. I studied hard. I was taking calculus when I was in 8th grade. I was part of 20 different activities, right? I scored the highest on the ACT, the highest on the SAT, okay? Welcome, Charles, Thomas, Desmond, Eric, Patrick. Welcome, brothers. I scored the highest that I could. I worked hard. My parents beat me up for it, everything else. And I did everything perfect that I was supposed to do. And then I applied to Harvard. I applied to Stanford. I applied to Princeton. I applied to Northwestern, Emory, University of Texas, University of Michigan. And I did not get accepted, but somebody of Black and brown complexion who did not score as high as me, who did not do as many activities as me, was accepted because of a racial consideration. That is what the Supreme Court battle was about, and that is what this movement was about, okay? Now, it is about the top schools. It is about, because we know that if you get into the top schools, we know that over your lifetime, you make 5 to 10, sometimes 15% more of an average income bump than those who don't. We know this through study. Now, this is not always constant, but this is an on average median, okay? But the challenge is, as I bring up Dr. McClinton, is that I have traveled the globe, gentlemen. And I think that in this time, This is my opinion before I bring up some expertise. You tell me where I can go. Now, first off, I am indigenous to this country. Most African Americans are indigenous because we did not decide to come here. We were brought here, okay, first off, right? We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. The Native Americans were already here and they were slaughtered. And then on top of that, our people fought in the Civil War. Many of you can trace your ancestry back to the Civil War. And then they fought in parts of World War I, and they fought in World War II. My grandfather is a World War II veteran, Medal of Honor, Purple Heart, went back to Mississippi and was still a second-class citizen. So many of us have roots that go back to slavery and go back to all the wars in this country and the Civil Rights Movement, in which Dr. Martin Luther King, during the Civil Rights Act, put out a notice, kind of a mention, for Black, brown, and yellow immigrants, if you want to say the word yellow, okay, to allow them to immigrate to America. So anybody here from Asia, anybody here from Africa, anybody here from the Caribbean, South America, you owe a great debt to Dr. Martin Luther King and the Southern Christian movement for putting in a notice to push immigration from those kind of countries. So our people bled, died, shed blood, slaughtered, killed, and slavery, everything for the opportunity to have America built. Now what you have people of different descent, whether European immigrant, Asian immigrant, whatever the case is, who come to the country, okay, well-intended, mom and dad work hard, have a general store, work in the street, whatever the case is, and they want their child to have the best opportunity. And when they run up against the idea of college admissions that exist, and they feel like they scored higher, they have an entitlement to the fact that how is it that this other person of Native or African American descent or Hispanic descent, which they also got their land stolen, they were also part of wars, right? We can go through all of that. How is it that they have a seat and my son doesn't have the seat? Well, let me break this down before I bring Dr. McClinton up. Let me ask you this question. Can I go to China, which I love? Can I go to the Philippines? Can I go to India? Can I go to Colombia, Brazil? Can I go to Germany as a well-to-do, educated, intelligent Black man and go to the country and say, you know what? Hey, I've worked harder. I'm smarter. My test scores are higher. My IQ is more acute. And take a seat of a rural indigenous Chinese person who grandparents and parents lived through the Mao dynasty, who lived through the Ding dynasty. Would that be justice? Would that be justice if I went to India, right? And because I have more money, because I got more investment, because I was smarter, because I had more savvy, and the children of Mahatma Gandhi, and I scored higher, and I said, hey, you don't deserve that seat, although your father died for the country. You don't deserve that seat. I deserve that seat because I scored higher than you. I'm in more activities than you. This is where we are. And look, I understand both sides of the argument, but here's the challenge. And I talk and I blame, if I had to blame, I blame the parents of those who immigrated and came. Because you stepped into a country that was already developed, that my parents and my grandparents and many of our parents bled and died for. You are benefiting. You are standing on the shoulders of my ancestors. And this is where the conversation has to go. You are not looking at us as an indigenous people. You are looking at us like we're you, and we're not you. And that's okay. When I lived in China for 3 years, I am not Chinese. I did not bled and die and shed for the development of China. But I did die, and our parents and our grandparents did die for the development of America. And so if that person of color, brown and Black, or whatever the case is, were to get a seat at a top university based on the merit of who they are, their race, ethnicity, whatever it is justified. It is not unjustified. It is justified because guess what? Their parents and their ancestors' blood cry out in the ground for justice and opportunity that they were denied. Not just, I'm not talking about their opportunity was not handed to them. No, they were denied the opportunity. And so because their grandchildren get the opportunity, oh, well, what about Malia? Does that mean Malia Obama gets a seat? Because look, she's the daughter of Obama. We're not talking about anomalies. Come on now. I'm not talking about Jay-Z and Beyonce's kids. I'm talking about the young man on the south side of Chicago or from the Bronx of New York, right? Who does not have a lot of stability, who's homeless, who figures out and all he can score is a 31 on the ACT. All he can score is a 48 on the SAT, 4,800. And he figures it out. And he figures out how to apply to Princeton. And he gets accepted. And yes, they consider his circumstances economically and his race. Because it's right, because his race died for America. Anyway, Dr. McClendon, come on up, man. Come on up. Dr. McClendon's going to come on up. I'm going to digress. And we're going to Dr. McClendon come up. He is an expert in this space. He is a professor at Morehouse University for the Center of Leadership, right? He takes young Black men around the world, right, primarily to Africa to understand the African heritage. Brother Dr. McClinton, welcome to 1 Million Black Men. Guys, welcome him in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat. We put a 1 in the chat to welcome you, sir.
Thank you for having me, David. It's a pleasure to be on tonight. So I appreciate your passionate words.
I think your Bluetooth is a little scratchy, by the way. You may want to take it off or something like that.
Okay, yeah. Let me just switch off. So what I was saying is, can you hear me better?
This guy, this is a young professor, y'all. He in it, right?
Yeah.
Isn't he a good-looking professor? Look at him right there. That's right. That's Professor Dr. McClinton of Morehouse College. Welcome, brother.
Thank you. So your words summed it up quite succinctly. What we have here is another attempt to kneecap what has been our efforts to build generational wealth as a people, you know, not only on racial lines, but on class lines as well. My experience working with affirmative action as both an applied educator and a policy analyst starts with my work out at UCLA, where I did undergraduate research on Proposition 209, which, if we're unfamiliar, so California is a really cool example because they had actually done away with affirmative action back in 1996. Wow. And did not have it again until 2020. So what many educators, including myself and Dr. Tyrone Howard out of the Black Male Institute at UCLA, what we were all working on was figuring out ways to sort of circumvent these deleterious decisions that the government ultimately makes as far as trying to ensure that colleges are able to still practice holistic admissions, even though technically they're not explicitly allowed to make decisions based on race. But an even stronger point that you made is that the particular issue really is at these elite institutions like Harvard, where sure, now they've done away with affirmative action, but they still have these legacy admittance practices where you got,
of course.
I mean, speak on it. You got 70% of these folks coming in with this privilege, and the overwhelming majority, like I said, 70% are white. That was brought up by AOC. And again, we're not targeting that as something that is unfair, something that is biased in the way these students are brought into these institutions that almost ensure, access to a higher quality of life. So, it's a sad day for us. But ultimately, like I said earlier, it is not as if we have not saw issues around this manifest from Michigan to Texas, and trying to make sure that our people are still given a fair shot and a fair opportunity to attend not only these elite institutions, as we've mentioned, but the major state schools as well. So it's going to be a lot of work for a ton of us in the higher education field as far as the research that we do and continuing to advocate and try to figure out how we can make sense of all this, given this recent change.
Let me ask you a question, Doctor, for the audience. Let me ask you a question, right? As you sit at Morehouse now, luckily you went to UCLA, right?
Yeah.
If you as you look at this right now, you're at Morehouse, right? and you think about some of the other, because Morehouse is interesting, right? Morehouse, Morehouse, Harvard, Spelman. Howard, Spelman. Some of the others, Hampton. You have like kind of what you consider your elite kind of HBCUs that exist, right? That partner. Like I know Morehouse has a direct pipeline into Harvard, right? I learned that as I was, in there. Like for those that don't know, right? Morehouse is an amazing place for your son, a Black son, to go to school because they have direct links into many of the Ivy Leagues, and many of them partner or goes to grad school and all that kind of stuff, right? It's a direct connection.
Absolutely.
But I want to know from your perspective, if you're talking to, we have many Black men on here who are grandfathers, fathers, right? Now that this Supreme Court thing has come down, right? How do they prepare themselves? Which this has been in the last 40, 50 years, right? We knew that, okay, hey, son, there's going to be a consideration for who you are as a person, as a Black person, as it comes to college. What nuances, what structure, as you sit on admissions committees and all that kind of stuff, do they now need to think about and look at, right? As they tell their story in college admissions, like what are the things that they should be telling their grandchildren or their children?
Absolutely. I think it brings the onus back to historically Black colleges. So I did actually domestic exchange work at UCLA. So that was like a summer as a student, but I attended Morehouse. And like you were saying, Morehouse, amongst the other HBCUs, have always been out in front as feeder schools into elite graduate programs and opportunities at the places like Harvard and Columbia, UC Berkeley, and all the other elite institutions across the country. So it's just going to be that being more savvy about your decisions as far as the schools that you apply to, because you might find that you are getting a better scholarship opportunity or grants and things of that nature by doing your undergrad at an HBCU with the mindset that you're going to be perhaps pursuing a degree after that, whether it's in law or a PhD or whatever at one of these elite institutions, because that's where the pinch is going to come. Unless you got a name already or you attended one of these elite schools yourself, it is just going to be that much more difficult for us, especially as Black men, to be getting into these schools in undergrad.
Like, do you think that, as I'm sure you followed this, do you think that why do you think the Supreme Court overruled this decision? They said, considering race is unconstitutional, right? Which, like, I get that. I kind of, but what was the debate happening in higher education that got it to this point? When you go to the conferences, when you deal with the stuff, what was happening that we, as people not in academia, what do we not understand?
I think we can look back to, and I actually have some dear colleagues that were working in the USC admissions department during that Hollywood nepotism scandal, and understand that.
That's right. What was that project? What was it? Project Varsity scandal?
Exactly.
You guys that don't know, remember the scandal with Lori Loughlin and all the celebrities? They were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to fake their kids as athletes and all kind of stuff to get their kids in the side door, they called it, into the top schools. Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is going on. Like I said, I had a colleague and a close friend who was working right on the ground in admissions, and he knew nothing of this. This was all taking place behind closed doors. And what we can understand and see is, that was the case where they got caught. The hand was in the cookie jar, was public for everybody to see, but the powers that be and these other folks that are doing this at these other institutions, they just won. That's all it was. We caught it at USC, but we have not caught it at Harvard. We have not caught it at Princeton or Yale or Wash U. This is a victory for the wealthy elites that can now essentially just buy their kids' ways into college.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? My story, man. I'll tell you guys this, right? As you guys know, the audience may knows, I self-educated myself. I read 600 books independently over about 4.5 years. And when I look back at that, right, and those listening, those who are, especially those that are listening who happen to be non-Black, What I discovered very quickly, particularly in America, is that no matter how smart, how savvy you are, no matter what exists, America thrives off of what I call institutional validation, right? Institutional validation is a big thing in America. You could be the best esthetician, but you need an institutional validator to get your certificate. You could be the most intelligent guy, but you need a institutional validator. You could be amazing at finance, but the fact that I went to Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan, right? It's a institutional validator. And so this to me takes back the ability for many Black folk, many brown folk, right? And say, you know what? We don't really care about the history. We don't really care about the thing. Like, that's the part of this that blows me. Because, dude, I cannot go and immigrate to Germany, to even Britain, to China, to Japan. I can't immigrate there and say, even if my kids are brilliant, and say, hey, you know what? I don't like that. No, my kids did better than your kids. This ain't what you mean. I didn't die to develop this country. Right. And that's the part that kind of blows me in all of this, is that is there a consideration in higher academia in America to look at the native, to look at the African American, to look at those even of Hispanic descent, right, who were part of wars and died as well, and say that these people groups are indigenous to this country?
Absolutely, and it is truly unfortunate where that and I say this sad as somebody with a PhD in education policy, that unfortunately the higher ed system in America is now completely pay to play, and any claim or stake that we feel, and what does Brother Tariq Nasheed call us, foundational Black Americans? Oh no, your child's opportunity to attend an elite institution, whether it be Northwestern or any of the ones we've mentioned before, well, now that's up for grabs. And if some wealthy individual from China or Germany wants to just buy their child's a position at that institution, then they are going to get in before you.
Hey, look, put in the chat if y'all with this, man. If y'all ain't understanding this, I need y'all to put a 1 in the chat, because he just look. I told you we built 1 million Black men, right, to free us psychologically, because I don't want. Here's the thing: you don't have to be negative. You don't have to be pessimistic. Okay, but we do have to be realistic and understand the landscape by which we play in. Okay, right? They just put this thing up as, thank you, Don, thank you, Terrence, thank you, Thomas. Look, this is now the Wild Wild West.
Absolutely.
Meaning that if I write that check,
absolutely.
If I write that check, then guess what? I get, because now we just took out any indigenous consideration. I mean, I'm like, we should start a movement, right? Indigenous consideration. At this point, is that a good idea?
Yeah, no, this now more than ever is our time to come together and do things just like this. On the one hand, we absolutely should embolden HBCUs. I'm obviously biased as an HBCU graduate and now an HBCU professor.
I'm all for HBCUs,
yeah. But if we are, if you're seriously considering attending an institution that is not an HBCU, you better find somebody to work with, and figure out ways that you can break into those nepotistic networks, whether they be through, like I said, connections or money, because it is just going to get that much more competitive.
I mean, this is going to be, I'm so convinced this is going to be one of the rules of the help of the demise of America in so many ways. And so, and I want to be straight with you. I want to say this. I understand I want to say this for those who are non-Black listening. I understand those who may be coming up in America that they do not understand the history. Okay. And I have understanding and consideration because of your ignorance. Okay. But I do think, again, the way I've traveled the world, the way I've seen things, even in my fellow African countries, right? It is not, it's something to be said, right, for us, that those that do not have a stake here per se, right, did not sacrifice here to be able in a generation to say, hey, that doesn't matter. All that should matter is what happened in black and white. All that should matter is what I scored on the test and my activities and what I did. I think that it is a spit. It is a dishonor to, when you talk about a country, when you talk about a nation, when you talk about history, culture, about what it means, right? There's a verse in the Bible that says, do not remove, right, the cornerstone, right, of ancestors, right? Because it reminds us of the things that are there. And, you know, and I got to take responsibility to a little bit, because I think for too long, you know, I think like we did not, maybe as a people, as Black people, take seriously or understand that level of sacrifice. Sometimes you don't appreciate something until it's taken away from you. You know what I'm saying, Doctor?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right. We just took consideration. Okay, yes, you're going to have consideration because of your Blackness, because of whatever it is, right? At the school, right? You're going to have a consideration, right? Because of the history. And so I hope that we can change that. You have any closing comments, Dr. McClinton?
You know, I just underscore everything that you have said, and you know, it's time for us, as we see policies like this, we can even jump over to the overturn of a Roe v. Wade. Things that we thought were set in stone in this country, they are not. And like you said, we are watching these pivotal shifts, and then it's time for all of us to wake up our minds, because any access to opportunity and resources that had been gained in the past by those pivotal leaders that we had, like a Dr. King or an A. Philip Randolph, they are actively being stripped away from us.
I just want to last tip for those who may have kids in the next 4 years looking to go to college. Do you have any special tips for them as they look to, you know, go to college or prepare their grandchildren or children for college? Any advice or tips for them?
You know, this has really put it on us as early as possible. I mean, the people that we are competing with, they are thinking about these things with their kids as early as 8 and 9 years old. And the moment you can kind of step into that and start problematizing what that landscape is actually going to look like for your children or grandchildren, the better. And to seriously consider historically black colleges, because at the end of the day, it ain't about one degree. One degree wasn't going to get me to where I needed to be. I had to get that PhD to be able to, you know, talk the way that I'm talking and walk in the rooms that I walk in, where I actually can. As much as, you know, we were ultimately not able to stop them from overturning affirmative action, we can still fight. We can still make our voices heard.
Man, thank you for being with us tonight, Dr. McClinton. You guys, look, let's give him a hand clap in the chat. Let's give him a one in the chat. Thank you so much, Dr. McClinton, for being with us, giving us some insight. Stuff, man, you're a young Black brother, man, really making moves. Actually, we had plans to go to Uganda this year and take about 20 Black men from Morehouse to Africa for the first time. We had some different snip-ups with that, but we got some things coming up, man. I appreciate you. Thank you for all you do, helping us. Like he's a brother that's helping us go to the top, because the bottom is too crowded. Thank you, Black man.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys. As we let's get Dr. McClinton out of here. But look, as we effectively, you know, like I wanted to look. I know 1 million Black men is primarily an economic movement. But I felt that this was important. This is obviously policies, politics is involved. But I think, you know, it's hard for us to separate sometimes, you know, especially for Black people, the policies that affect us so gruesomely throughout history and our wealth and our economics, right? And so, like, I want to close with this, with everyone here. I want to close with this. Do not take for granted the things that seem so common, right, for us as a community. Do not take it for granted any longer, right? The grants that I considered, the DBE certifications, MBE, WBE certifications, the different things that were set aside. Now, I got to be honest, sometimes I don't even like it. Sometimes I do think some of the kind of programs that are meant to encourage us as a people sometimes can be crutches as a people, right? Now this is a family conversation. I want you to understand that, right? And I sometimes have to say to my brothers and sisters of a different color, I say, look, some conversations, right, you're not supposed to have. Some conversations is a family conversation, right? Look, I have made the mistake of dipping myself into a women's conversation, and it wasn't a conversation I was supposed to be having. And the women corrected me, hey, we get you got an opinion, but right now, this ain't your conversation, brother. Okay? And so when I'm talking to Black people right now, this is part of our conversation. There are too many things that exist even right now in America, in Brazil, and all type of nations that are considerations of our indigenousness, right? And you gotta understand that other people see that as an assault, right? Why do you get a consideration? Not understanding the history or why it's put in place in the first place. Because they don't remember that even in corporate America, in many institutions, there were no people of color. Okay? Brown versus the Board of Education, at one time for Black people to walk into a white school, they had to have U.S. Marshals at the door escort a 7-year-old girl into a school because they were not wanted there. And so the reality is history will repeat itself if we don't fight for the history's results. It is time for us to be mindful, not only in building our wealth, but also in the policies and procedures and the things that exist in the country that protect the interests of an indigenous person. I'm going to say we are a Black indigenous people of color. That's what we are. Okay? Now, I don't make excuses for mediocrity. I don't make excuses for not being able to study, but I will tell you my own experience. I was the first to go to college and complete college. I was the first to see the opportunities that I saw, not because of a lack of work ethic, not because of a lack of intelligence, because it was a lack of proximity. It was a lack of opportunity. It was a lack of policy. My grandfather was a brilliant man. This man killed 300 Nazis as a sniper at 17 years old. Came back to Mississippi at the time. That's where his home was. That's where he grew up as. We were part of the Anderson plantation. And he was denied opportunity. That's not his fault by any means. Yes, he could have maybe moved. He did move. They moved to Michigan. They had different things. They moved back. Like, he sought out opportunities for his family, but because of the policies in the country, he was not given. So I say to you, Black people, I say to you, Black woman, Black man, do not take for granted the privileges, the opportunities, the things that are set up for us, by the bloodshed that happened for those that came before us. Please do not. I'm asking you. Okay? With that, man, look, this has been a good night. This was a special show. I hope you guys liked. I hope you guys share. Please share this show as it comes out. We're trying to get better with our thumbnails on YouTube and Facebook, but I had to stop. We had to talk about this today because this was big. This was big, right? This is big. Now, that means that, man, guess what? I mean, these people, they spend 100, 200 grand on their kids before they even go to college, right? So it's going to change the way you spend your money. It's going to change the way you do things. And I'm going to encourage you, Black man, tonight, right? As you think about wealth creation for 7 generations, you're going to have to think about your children, what schools they're going to go to, what the opportunity set is going to be. Because now you are competing against immigrants, as Dr. McClinton said, you are competing against immigrants who come over here with a bag. They come over here and they give a $20 million gift, okay? And they're from Asia, they're from Europe, and now they're paying to play. And there's no consideration for you. And so you got to be on top of your stuff. Guys, you know I love you as always, man. Let's go, right? Let's go. Yeah? Right? Put that in the chat. Let's go. Get ready. Get your kids ready. Get your grandkids ready, right? That's okay. Guess what? We have had, you know what's crazy? What's crazy, and after this, I digress, man. What's crazy, man, about our people here, boy? We have had to do more with less in so many situations. Like, it's crazy. We have had to do more with less. So once again, we have to rise to the occasion, right? And do more with less. But that's okay. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing. I hate to say it. That's what we've been doing. Doing more with less, right? Turning a dollar out of 10 cents. Figuring out how to maneuver, how to make this. They ask sometimes, man, why, black people, they always, got the hustle, they moving the things around because we've had to, right? Because when we get a consideration, when we are, if we are in a position of power, it's seen as an assault. It just is. And I don't know why. What have we ever done to America except build it for free? What did we do to it? What did we do? I had to look that up one time. I said, man, what did we do to not be liked? There was nothing we did. Zero. Except exist. And so what I'm going to say to you tonight, yes, it is an atrocity that folks, 1 or 2 generations here in America, feel entitled to their kids or whoever it is going to college, right? Having a seat because they scored higher on the test. It is ridiculous. It is absolutely an atrocity. Yes, there should be a consideration for the indigenous people. If I choose to go to a school in China, if I choose that, a lot of top schools there, well, let that be my choice. But I can't yell and scream about it because a rural Chinese person got in because they consider them and deal with their poverty and their local politics. That's what it is. Look, man, whatever you do, like I said again, 1 million black men, we're here to support you. We're here to bring truth. Number 1, right? Psychological freedom. Number 2, financial freedom, economic freedom. Number 3, wealth creation for 7 generations, what we're after, and to teach that and get that. Guys, be focused, be proud, be on top of it. Hey, guys, let's put up our anthem, our spoken word. Man, I appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. We had droves and dozens of folks come back in and out. I think folks were sharing it, everything. Please, guys, share this with other people. I hope that it inspires. I hope that it educates. And most important, man, I hope to see each and every one of you at the top. Because like I say always time, man, the bottom is just way too crowded. All right? Peace.
Calling all black men. This is a call to action. This is a call to action. An action call. Calling all black men. This is a call to action. This is a call to action. An action call for 1 million black men. I am Kwesi to put you on a call path to win. This is not a Zoom call or a call on Facebook Live. Though we are virtual, we are live. Not a call on TikTok like MLB black men, we are on the clock. Not a call from Snapchat. Move back, my bat. We are on first base. To Isaac Hayes Jr. fan base, we have an ally on third base. Grand Slam, not a call from Instagram, as we don't need validation with blue checks. We are the true checks. We do checks. We write checks. We are the right checks. We do family checks. We check in on our sons and our daughters. We are black men who walks on waters because our children like to FaceTime. We are black men who FaceTime. Let's FaceTime. This is still not a call from an Android or an iPhone. It is extraterrestrial to phone home. I know sometimes black men, we have to travel around the world to be appreciated at home. But you are not alone. You are in the each one, teach one green zone, where the elusive weapon is the truth. We are the black truth. We are Paul Pierce, the truth. We are the loot. We are 1 million black men strong. We will get along as we landline. We walk across their blue and red line. Now this call is from a landline with rotary numbers and a coiled cord. We are 1 million black men on one accord. This cord and phone transmits a dial tone, whether a local call or a call of long distance. Regardless of the distance, it connected us. Social media unconnected us. Our homes need us. They soul feed us. And not just food that give us niggas-itis. I write this, our homes bleed, sweat, tears for us. Black men, it is up to us. It is on us, not to just procure the bag. Buddha bless one, share it with me. Get the info under your afro, bro. And establishing sovereignty to be a one united bank for economic just us. Black men, we must set up a family trust to an estate, because right now everything is at stake. Because we can't lead from behind, from your behind to your mind. They are public with their relevance as they use artificial intelligence. In this age of information, Elon Musk bought Twitter to gather more of our information. So if I have to be the Starlink, I will break the Starlink for 1 million black men. But I won't condone our culture with misuse of our information. So I grant you David Anderson for this financial literacy education. DA went from shy Southside streets to JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs on Wall Street. From Chicago State to Harvard. At 19, he fathered the economics in his family house. DA served in President Obama administration at the White House. He lived in China for 3.5 years, learning the Chinese economy, the renminbi. To the British pound, black men, let's get this pound. To the European euro, we NBA step into the euro. To the Uganda chilling. Black men, let's be empowered by our billing and be willing to learn and understand. Money is just a tool to build unshakable wealth. 7 generations deep that DA will teach that we can compete in an economy beyond that's local. Black men, we must think global. So I present to you David Anderson to put you on this financial literacy path to win. Welcome to the movement. 1 million black men.